Jury deliberations could begin as soon as today in the trial of a man charged with fatally running over a Toronto police officer. The judge is presenting her instructions to the jurors today in the trial of Umar Zameer. Zameer has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder in the death of Constable Jeffrey Northrup, who was struck and killed in a parking garage in Toronto. Zameer's defense team has argued he did not know Northrup was a cop and thought he posed a threat to his family. Let's bring in Ari Goldkind, our legal analyst. Ari, thank you for joining us today.
Good morning, Roger.
What is the judge going to be talking to the jury about on this?
So the first thing the judge has to turn her mind to is the pathway to convictions. So there's often what's called a decision tree. If you think X, proceed to Y. If you don't think X, it's over. The options available are first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter, and an outright acquittal, which is, I think, most likely in the cards. First-degree murder, just to bring people back into the courtroom, is that he did know that it was a police officer that he was running over. That's what takes a murder, such as second-degree murder, where there's an intention to kill or recklessness as to whether death will ensue. If it's a police officer, that immediately elevates it to first-degree murder. You don't need planned and deliberate the way you do in other cases that don't involve a police officer. Manslaughter, the Crown made very clear yesterday, was his driving. That by backing up, not checking his mirrors, not putting down his window, it was really a very weak argument from the Crown that the dangerous driving would be the unlawful act that could be manslaughter. Obviously, the defense emphasizes, and I think an acquittal is likely and proper here, despite the tragedy of the loss of Officer Northrup's life. The defense lawyer made very clear that you don't compound a tragedy by making an injustice, some kind of revenge because Officer Northrup isn't here, and it was a very persuasive argument compared to the Crown's presentation.
And now the defense has also accused police officers of lying on the stand. What kind of an impact has that had?
So this is really interesting, Roger, for people across Canada who don't know how things happen in a courtroom. When police officers make notes after a serious event, they are supposed to make those notes by themselves. They go into rooms by themselves, if they're going by the book, and they put down what they remember, what they observed, what they saw. You don't have an opportunity to collude and put your heads together. Here it was made very clear before the jury that the three officers that the defense says are lying through their teeth, obviously because they support their partner, obviously because they're upset that Officer Northrup was taken. Those three officers were in a room together preparing their notes and version of events, which is completely forbidden in my business. And how do we know that that's what could blow up this prosecution? Because the Crown and defense hired experts to show what actually happened at this collision in the underground at the old City Hall parking lot. And both reconstructionists and another police officer who was eerily telling the truth despite the risk to him basically said that those three officers' versions of events was completely wrong.
Now, is there anything that good that could come out of this? Any changes that we don't maybe see a repeat of something like this?
So it's such a great question. I'm going to take that question and flip it a bit, Roger, which is there is so much public and political pressure and police pressure on the Crown attorneys to complete and pursue this prosecution that it's showing to a millions of people in the public who think, look, there should be revenge. The officer is not here. Somebody's got to pay for it. When you look at the evidence of Mr. Zameer that day, who had no intention to hurt an officer, he's there with his family and child. They think that they're going after a stabber, and they terrify him, and he backs up because he thinks it's really bad guys. This is a lesson to the Canadian public, I think, to not jump to conclusions about what happened before a trial happens, because this is a prosecution, Roger, that I can tell you is so problematic. A conviction would be such an injustice. The idea that Mr. Zameer would spend his life in jail for what happened that night, if you follow the details in the courtroom, I think this is a cautionary tale to the public to just breathe, let the evidence come out, and I think the jury will do the right thing in the next couple days and acquit.
Okay.